All right, so I'm here with the Portland State Solar District Cup team. We're part of the Bring Your Own District division proposal. We had guidance through the SAM modeling and helioscope, as well as REOPT and through the resources provided by NREL. Next. We are a multidisciplinary team consisting of 3 mechanical engineers and 3 electrical engineers. The mechanical engineers are Lauren Bashe, William Muguaneza, and Samuel Pechovnik. And then the electrical engineering team consists of me, Joshua Dwarning, Lucy Rudder, and Gabrielle Hladic. We also had additional support from our sponsored mentor, Benjamin Pirro. And then we did find a outside consultant on the BESS industry named Drew Leibowitz. And I'll pass it over to Gabrielle and we'll do the next slide.
Hello, I'm Gabrielle. So within our district, there were 19 feasible buildings to look at for our design. We narrowed it down to 5, 2 of which are academic buildings and 3 are parking structures. Our selection criteria for these buildings was that we wanted to make sure that there was ample space, 1 for the rooftop equipment, and then 2 within the electrical rooms for the equipment that we would be putting in. We also wanted to make sure that it had a high potential energy production, and all in all, we wanted everything to be in alignment with our university's carbon neutrality goals. So as you can see, the 2 academic buildings, the engineering building and 4th Avenue building, have a ballasted rooftop solar array design. And then the 3 parking structures have an elevated carport style array design. For the battery systems, we interconnected the 2 academic buildings to 1 indoor battery system that has liquid cooling. And then we interconnected the 3 parking structures to 1 battery system that is outdoor, all of which are lithium-ion batteries. Next slide, please. So the campus's current average yearly energy production is roughly 43.2 gigawatts. And just from our 5 buildings alone, we were able to produce 2,565 megawatts per year. So this offsets the campus's energy production or energy consumption by 6% using our solar energy, which then results in a 9% decrease in CO2 emissions per year. This is roughly about 54 metric tons of CO2 emissions. Next slide, please. So our main objectives was that we wanted to offer the campus increased renewable energy production. We wanted to offset their CO2 emissions, and we wanted to build resiliency within the campus. By incorporating the battery storage system, we wanted to utilize time of use optimization and offer the campus a good financial payoff plan over the long term. However, some constraints that we ran into was that it was quite difficult finding a feasible location for some of our equipment, more specifically the battery storage, because we are in a very condensed downtown area. And then also we ran into some pretty high upfront costs, also particularly towards the battery system. And then lastly, another constraint was in regards to our development plan. The construction timeline was a bit messy just due to the amount of disruption it would cause because our university is in a congested urban area. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick glimpse of how we chose to interconnect our design to the existing infrastructure. So here are 2 single line diagrams. They're just little snips of our design for the 2 academic buildings. You can see that we interconnected to existing main distribution boards that serve the voltage that we need. We then, we serve them from existing spare breakers, and then we incorporated the equipment such as inverters, utility metering, and net metering for the customer side, disconnects, panel board combiners, the PV itself, and the battery system. We also sized all of our equipment as well as the conduits and feeder runs. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the single line diagram specifically for parking structure 3. All the parking structures were relatively the same and have all the same equipment as the academic buildings. The only difference here is that we did need to include a step-up transformer because our main distribution board within the parking structure doesn't serve 480 volt power, it only serves 208. So an additional transformer to the design. We also decided to incorporate EV charging stations into just parking structure 3 because parking structure 1 and 2 had EV charging stations. And then the image on the left is the electrical floor plan for that. Next slide, please. So the manufacturers we decided to go with for our PV design was First Solar, because they are local to the US, which would save on costs for shipping, and because they have a unique cadmium telluride thin film PV, which offers high efficiency and has a low embodied carbon footprint compared to other PV options. For our inverter, we went with the Sunny Tri-Power manufacturer, also because they're local and have a 98% peak efficiency, which in turn is good for our design. And also their inverters are compatible with our PV chosen. Next slide, please. Lastly, we went with Powin for our best manufacturer because they are local to Oregon specifically, which would save on costs. And they offer a well-designed emergency backup power system and a peak shaving optimization interface for our design. All right, next slide, please.
Hi, I am Lucy. So I will kind of run through the financial performance stuff that we are looking at. So we have the 5 buildings that we picked, 2 engineering buildings and 3 parking structures. And as you can see, we have different kinds of IRR all over the place, sort of. So it's starting at 7.5 minimum and going to 10.3 on the maximum of the IRR, as well as payback periods between 9.5 and 12 years, depending on the building. And obviously the smallest building will take the longest to pay off. So, and also ranging the cost from 132,000 to 1.4 million. And this is just for the PV systems that we are looking at. And we also chatted with the capital expenditure department. And if the university does decide to do some of these projects, they will probably do them 1 building at a time. So next slide. Thank you. So if we also did a financial analysis for the full project, if the university is very ambitious and does it all together, it's going to come out to about $4 million for everything, with a total IRR of 9% and an NPV of 600,000 and 10-year of the payback period. And you can also see that the savings for electricity will start at over 100,000 and go almost up to $500,000. Next slide. Thank you. So, but then obviously we were looking at adding the BESS systems. Unfortunately, that instantly made our internal rate of return go down to negative 18%, because after we chatted with Drew from the BESS manufacturer person, he let us know approximately what it's going to cost, and we modeled that information in SAM and realized that it was going to add $1.2 million to our project per the BESS system. And we have 2 of those, which would increase our overall cost by $2.4 million. And we will end up with a NPV of negative $2 million, and definitely kind of a negative investment for the 25-year period. So as of this point, we would not recommend in adding the BESS systems to the solar PV systems. Thank you. Next slide.
Hello, I'm Samuel. So with the development plan, PSU is entirely located within a district that has preparations made for distributed power generation, but very little actually in place, with only 0.1 megawatt on one of the grids and 0 megawatts on the other. And so the area is currently primed for solar installation, and it also aligns with state, city, and campus goals for carbon neutrality and shifting off in the Pacific Northwest hydropower in order to
reclaim climate for fish. The main challenge with development is going to be working around class schedules and experiments, and that is going to require staging the materials at the start of summer and completing each construction phase over the course of a summer before classes resume, because the engineering building and the 4th Avenue building are used as classrooms and as experiment spaces, and the parking on campus is already very restricted. However, the campus would already like to do it piecemeal, and so that aligns with that development time. Next slide, please. So zoning regulations are not that much of a factor for us because our zoning is mostly concerned with changing footprints of buildings, and all of this is going to be on existing footprints. However, PSU does exist within a design district, which means that certain visual concerns are considered, such as the visual impact of the carports, the 4th Avenue building and engineering building. Everything would be shrouded using a parapet, and so those buildings would not actually be negatively impacted at all. And the carports would be positively impacted because carports in the design district are required to have non-traditional shading, which photovoltaic panels do qualify as. In terms of the battery systems, there are very, very stringent requirements for the fire codes in the engineering and 4th Avenue buildings, and the exterior battery systems for the parking structures would require quite a bit of clearance in an already congested downtown area, making an already expensive proposition even more difficult to implement. The engineering reviews would be required for the physical and electrical work on the solar arrays, and more complicated would be interconnection because the feeders are from an area network, which means that the network is fragile, and so the engineering building and 4th Avenue building would be qualified as level 2 arrays, which means that there would be some review required, but any of the parking structures are large enough that they would be considered level 4 arrays, which are more expensive to review, and Portland State would be liable for the costs from those buildings. Next slide, please.
All right, so to understand the community sentiment towards a project of this size, we did distribute a poll across campus. We received 79 responses, with 60% of students strongly agreeing that PSU should invest in solar energy production. We did find, though, that the total production is an important factor when considering installation, but reliability, cost savings, and the climate impact are more important to students on campus. Next slide.
Lastly, so my name is Lauren. Lastly, to look at the way that this project will actually work with within the district's goals, we looked at PSU's established sustainability goals. So in 2010, PSU signed on to Second Nature's carbon and climate commitments, which it's currently signed by over 600 universities around the world. And it gave guidance for PSU to establish our climate action plan. So that constitutes a goal to be completely carbon neutral by 2040. So how does our project fit within that? So looking at carbon neutrality, that encompasses not just the power consumption, but also our embodied life cycle, or embodied energy, natural gas, etc. So as mentioned earlier, we're consuming roughly 40 gigawatts of power per year. Our annual proposed generation on this is roughly 2.6 gigawatts, which gives us a power offset of a little over 6%. And there's a typo on this slide that gives us a carbon offset of around 9%. So it's not complete, but with all of the other implemented sustainability projects on campus, this can create a solid dent. We've also established or been working on outside the scope of this project, water catchment off of the solar panels into cisterns, which would decrease our carbon consumption even further. Next slide. Any questions?